We just had a closed session meeting. Grady, would you like to comment on what we discussed, or?
To the extent I can, I just gave an update with the Sunset Beach pending settlement efforts, and it's moving still in a positive direction. I had a few questions of council I needed you to weigh in on that I thought was beyond kind of my lane. But Sunset Beach West litigation settlement that involves putting aside that land for conservation. And so earlier today, in speaking with opposing counsel, Mark Hamlin on that, as well as Christine Gable with the Division of Coastal Management, I let them know that we would be speaking tonight. I wanted to make sure I wasn't going beyond the kind of my authority of what I felt council would be comfortable with. I'm clear now. I'll go and report back to Ms. Gable and Mr. Hamlet tomorrow, and hopefully continue this process to a resolution. That's really all I had in closed session.
Thank you, Grady. I'd like to have an agenda of you. I'd like to state real quick, I'd like to put a motion out there for 1 and 2 on old business, to be voted on to take off of the agenda. Also on new business, 3 and 2 to be taken off. I need a second.
You need.
All right, wait.
Excuse me.
Oh.
Go ahead, Hiram.
I was gonna say, I think you should do each one of those individually
Okay.
instead of as a mass.
Okay, I'm making a motion to take off 1 and 2 of old business. That's Mayoral vacancy, legal review, and public discussion.
So moved.
Okay, second.
Second.
No,
Whoa. Rich?
You're going too fast for me.
Number 2, violation of open meeting laws.
Hold on.
Okay.
We gotta have
Why?
discussion.
There's a
Excuse me,
motion.
Rich.
There's a motion that's been made. You need to make a decision on the motion.
All right, so motion on number 1. All in favor? To take it off? Yes, to remove it.
Aye.
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 Off.
I'm sorry, my hearing is rapidly deteriorating, and I have a hard time understanding these rushed processes.
Come sit here, Rich, so you can hear better.
And I'm having a hard time with these rush processes. This is an agenda review. This is a council discussion agenda review. Now, I have a couple of items that I would...
Rich, you're out of order. I'd like to make a motion to take off number 2.
What is number 2? Specify it,
Will,
mister.
Rich, violation of open meeting laws and legal review, which has been addressed by our town attorney. I need a second on that.
Second.
Ho.
No ho.
When was that discussed?
Right now.
Why are you taking it off when it hasn't been discussed with the public? I don't understand this. Grady, help me out.
Mr. Serrato, the council is making a motion to amend the meeting agenda. They're making a motion to see if it passes or not of taking items off of the old business agenda and new business agenda. The first item was taken off by vote just a few minutes ago on the topic of mayoral vacancy, a legal review and public discussion, premised upon the fact that I've already weighed in on that by way of an email weeks ago that you were privy to, and that I suspect that's the same reason that they're wanting to have it removed on item 2.
That's correct.
So much for transparency, Mr. Richardson.
What are you, I am not the one making the motion. I'm not the one seconding it. I'm not the one voting on it. I'm happy to give my opinion on these items again.
We just had a process mess 2 months ago.
In your opinion?
In my opinion,
Yes,
we
I'll-
had a process mess 2 months ago.
I think your mic is off, Rich.
It is on now. Thank you, Charlie. We had a process mess 2 months ago. And we've had motions that were made and passed without the matters being on the agenda.
Out of order, Rich.
And you
Out of
are,
order, Rich.
you are
I'm going to
banging that
I'm going to ask
hammer.
you one more time, but I'm going to ask the police
You
department.
are doing that
I will
to
short recess,
remove
please. Please short
discussion.
recess.
You should be embarrassed.
I'm not embarrassed. You let it go. Answer. Can you please remove him from that dais? Richard, we'll discuss this after the motions are done. And Grady will have a time to speak on this.
I just want to revise what as far as the agenda review. I would like to remove item 2 and 3. This is under new business. Item 2 is requesting Jinks Creek to be classified a P&A.
Thank you.
And that may be too premature, even though the experts at the scoping meeting believe that it should be a P&A.
In your
This council,
opinion.
will you please let me finish? This council has yet to officially remove Jinks Creek from the agenda, and I think that needs to be done.
I will second the motion.
When do we
You
just?
already took it off already.
Item 3 has been answered. This is about the depth levels of the dredging program. I was concerned about the collapsing bulkheads if depth levels were increased. And if anybody believes that I'm wrong, please let me know. Also,
Richard, real quick, we have Robert here to discuss that. We will discuss that with him.
okay. Also, I have received a letter. Well, I'm jumping around.
Yeah, Rich, can you wait till that comes up, please, when
May I-
Robert's here?
Okay. all
May I
right, fine.
interject for just a moment?
All right, but I've taken it off the agenda because it doesn't have to be a separate agenda item.
Thank you.
You've asked for a motion to remove new business items 2 and 3.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's a request. I mean, I don't know.
Right, you're the one that asked for those items to be
Yes.
on there, you're asking for them to be removed.
Right.
Okay, council?
I seconded it.
There's been a seconded motion, y'all need to have a vote, and up or down, you're gonna
All
take
in
them
favor
off.
of taking on new business, number 2 and 3 off the agenda?
Aye.
Okay, going back to old business, violation number 2, violation of the open meeting laws and legal review. I need a second.
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 All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's off.
Discussion?
No discussion.
No discussion. It should be called
Well-
suppression.
Well, now, Rich, B, council discussion. You have a right to speak now, Rich.
On what issue?
Any issue you want to.
We had at a business association, we had a meeting here in the middle of June with the business association people. This council promised feedback in a very timely fashion. I was approached by 2, and the association is still waiting. My other comment is, I received a letter in my mailbox. I don't know who, it's anonymous. And it references evidently the Presbyterian Church in Ocean Isle. This is related to Ocean Isle. Somebody is complaining about having church services in Ocean Isle. And they're having a meeting. I guess they're trying to stop them. They're having a meeting. Ocean Isle is on September 11th. Now, knowing this area the way I do, they're going to first start at Ocean Isle, and then they're going to find their way to Sunset Beach. So I'm just curious, has anybody heard of this issue at all?
Yeah. Public comment, you'll be able to speak.
Lisa, can you just copy that for the council, and just to be on the alert? It seems like there's someone trying to start a program to stop the church services on the beach.
Any more to council discussion? Charlie?
I have one thing, in my interest in the business community, I want to start recognizing businesses that have taken a time and expenses to make their businesses look good. And my one for tonight is Dave's, the fish equipment store. Saw the owner out there over a time period, put his own side in, put his own irrigation system. He has the flowers in, it looks great. And I think all our businesses in the town need to do that. Makes the whole town look good.
I'd just like to add something. On F6, I'd like to add sunset discussion with Karen Joseph. She's done a great job this year putting this all together. I'd like to give her time to speak about that. Okay, Karen? So that is, Rich, that is on F6, sunset. Any other town discussion? John? Jan?
No.
Okay. This time I'd like to call to a pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, Brady. This time I'd like to say, does any member of the council have a conflict of interest or appearance of conflict of interest in regards to any items on the agenda? And if so, please state it at this time. Charlie?
No.
John?
No.
Rich? No. Jan?
No.
Myself, no. Robert? You up?
Council, I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and what I wanted to do was, I thought it was a good time for an update. It's been a little bit of, as we approached during the permitting process, wanted to update on where we were, and I thought a written document probably would not be sufficient at this time, so I just wanted to update on.
Speak up a little bit, Robert, for Richard.
Wanted to update where we are on the process as we go through. Here's about 12 slides. Not really looking for a motion tonight, unless there is objection to the path forward that we present. We have a motion to, I have direction to submit the permit application, and just want to let you know what that application will entail at this point. We did test this. It worked a minute ago, I promise.
Would you like to ask questions as you go or wait for after you're done?
I'm okay with, let's wait. There's only 12 slides.
Okay.
And we'll switch back and forth so if we need to. So let's finish throughout and then come back, if we need to. There we go. Okay. So discussion outline, really just what I want to do is review a brief, let everyone know that the overall project scope, and then the project has been split really into two components. So review the overall scope, the current status, and then the results of the USA discussions we've had for use of the disposal islands, and then get into the conceptual project moving forward as far as a potential truck haul project, and then look at the permit submittal status and new construction time frame. So with that, the project, as we mentioned, is split into two components. The first component is Turtles and Mary's Creek. Roughly 16,000 cubic yards would need to be dredged from those areas. They are classified as primary nursery area, or PNA, and the original intent was to take that material to the USA Disposal Island 311 here on the shown on the map. So those permits were submitted in February and have been placed on hold because we could not use those disposal islands. The Corps sent notification that those islands were off limits by new guidance, federal guidance issued in February 2017 that we were unaware of. Oop, that wasn't good. Yep. Here we go. There's that date. All right, try it again. So the second part of this project involves the feeder canal and bay area, as well as South Jinks Creek, roughly 50,000 cubic yards coming out of the feeder canal, finger canals, and bay area. That material will need to go to a upland site. It is non-beach compatible, but there is about 40,000 yards in South Jinks Creek, in the shoaling there of South Jinks Creek, that is beach compatible and will actually is proposed at this point to be placed on the beach between 5th and 11th Street. So the original intent, again, for the feeder canal, finger canals, and bay area was for that material to go upland to that core island 311, as shown on the previous slide. However, that February 2017 guidance that we were unaware of prohibited that, and so we're trying to find a different alternative or convince the Corps to change that policy. So then again, just more of review. As we said, the Marys and Turtles Creek permit was submitted in February. That's been placed on hold because of the Corps guidance. The feeder canal bay area, those permits have not been submitted because we did not have a placement location. We're still trying to identify a placement location, and it would not do, if we submitted them, they would just, as Marys and Turtles Creek have done, they would just sit there until we revised them. They would not be reviewed. However, as part of this permitting process, as we all know, North Jinks Creek has been removed from the process, from the project scope at this point. In so doing that, we're going to need to request a variance from the CRC, because North Jinks Creek was our primary path in order to establish a deep water connection to the Intercoastal Waterway or the Atlantic Ocean. And so in accordance with Rule 15A of the North Carolina Administrative Code 07H up here 028B, we would need to provide that deep water connection.
Could you say that again? Not Jinks Creek has been removed.
Yes.
From the dredging program.
From the scope of this project, yes.
At this time.
Yes.
What do you mean at this time?
Has
it been removed or not removed?
It is not proposed for construction. The request will have to go before the Coastal Resource Commission. In other words, the state will have to say it's okay not to dredge, not to provide that deep water connection. The rules of the North Carolina Administrative Code at this time say we have to provide a deep water connection. If we're going to dredge the feeder canal and bay area to a -5 mean low water, which is what has historically been dredged to, then we would have to establish that -5 connection to either the Atlantic Ocean or the Intercoastal Waterway, some other deep water path.
But Robert, that's where the variance comes in, correct?
That's where we were requesting the variance. The state agencies, the staff have said they support that variance request. It'll go before the Coastal Resource Commission, and they will have their way if they.
But the variance is for water quality purposes. Is that not correct?
The variance, the requirement to dredge to provide that deep water path is for water quality issues. We are trying to get a variance from that water quality statute. So the state, if they follow their water quality standards, we will be required to dredge North Jinks Creek or Tubbs Inlet or Eastern Channel. We will be required to provide that deep water connection. We are trying to avoid that.
The scoping meeting people suggested an alternative so that North Jinks Creek did not have to be dredged.
That's correct. The
Okay.
variance.
So I'm assuming that position is going to be respected.
Real quick, Robert. Richard, we agreed no questions to after he's almost done. He's got 2 more slides left, and you can have all the questions. Go ahead, Robert, finish up.
So, yeah, so that is where we're at this point. North Jinks Creek being removed, the feeder canal permit is preparing to be submitted. Marys and Turtles Creek is on hold, and we're hopeful for a variance approval once we get a permit decision from the application. And that pretty much has been reviewed up to this point. The new progress that were made, we were able to have that discussion with the Corps as far as can we use those disposal islands. They have agreed to it. They will allow us to use the disposal islands. However, there are stipulations or catches that make it prohibitive or really impossible to use and still have construction this year. The 2 main requirements that they will mandate on us is, 1, any material we place on the island will have a period of probably 1 year, maybe up to 3 years to remove. So anything we place on it, we will have to pay to remove. Also, their agreement, they will require a financial assurance document and financial assurance itself prior to the work prior to beginning the work, that the material we place on the island will be removed. In other words, it's going to cost us more to use those islands, we will have to, one, clear the land that is now have significant vegetation and trees on. We will have to improve the island so it will hold our material as well as additional material, and then we will have to come back within a period of a year and remove any material we place and perhaps more. The details of that have not been worked out. Beyond that, the agreement that the town would have to enter into with the Corps has not been reviewed by headquarters. In other words, they don't have a contractual vehicle to allow us to do this at this point. They would have to circulate it through Washington, D.C., which, dealing with the Corps of Engineers, right there tells you it's not going to happen this year. In my opinion, we needed to look at a different project. They said we could use the island, which is great, but if we want to construct this year, we will not be able to use those islands in a timely manner. So that's where we came to, is they're allowing us to use it, but not this year. And so that's when we heard that news as a construction time frame, the intent to build this year, to construct this year, we needed to divert from those islands, and we looked at other options. And I believe, well, the one I would recommend at this point is a truck haul project for both Turtles and Mary's Creek, as well as the feeder canal and Bay Area. South Jinks Creek would still be placed on the beach, so that would not be a truck haul, that would be a hydraulic pipeline. But would recommend this project would be done by an excavator and barge. In other words, there would be a backhoe on a barge. They would dig the material, place it on the barge. The barge would ship to an offloading site where the material would be offloaded from the barge to perhaps a truck. Then that truck would take the material either to a dewatering site or the final placement site. We have potential sites identified in all of those locations. We don't have final agreements. But I think within a period of a week or 2 weeks, we can have those details worked out and have a permit submittal. The cost for what we call a bucket to barge project, or not a hydraulic dredge, for a bucket to barge project is going to significantly increase. However, it is still eligible for the state grant, 2/3 cost share, and because we are removing the improvements from the disposal island, from the core disposal island, we will no longer have to improve those islands, and we are reducing the scope as far as North Jinks Creek, the material volume. We are not removing that material volume. I believe the overall budget will remain perhaps the same. It could be, I do think there could be a $500,000 increase, which would be in that neighborhood, which would still be 2/3 cost shared by the state. So essentially we are getting less while paying more, but the project could be completed, I believe, with roughly the same budget. I don't have those numbers, but we are working through those numbers and expect to come back in early October with a proposed budget, with an estimated revised project cost for review. So at this time, our goal is to have it roughly the same numbers as before. It's just a smaller scope as far as North Jinks Creek will not be included. So it's less dredging, but essentially the same cost because of that switching operations from a hydraulic dredge to a bucket to barge operation. So with that, kind of go through some of the details that we're looking at for the bucket to barge type operation. And I did it again. Be very careful. So this, for Mary's Creek, this is a zoom in off of Google Earth, and what I am proposing, and I should stress, I do not have the owner's permission or consent or even discussions with, but we believe for Mary's Creek, the best offloading site would be Krabby Oddwaters or Bill's Seafood Restaurant. During the winter months, I understand it may be closed down. I'm hopeful that it's closed down, and their parking lot would allow the trucks to enter into the site, back up to the bulkhead, and then could be loaded directly from the barge in top of Mary's Creek. So that is our conceptual plan at this point. We still need the owner's approval for that, for Crabby Oddwaters and Bill Seafood. We are also looking for dewatering sites. This material will be sloppy, is the best way I know, the technical term. So they may not be able to truck it. We have identified a final disposal area at Ike Williamson Spit. We have had initial conversations, do not have confirmation that he will accept it, nor the details of the cost it may be there for that. But those are our thoughts right now, is that the material would be offloaded at the restaurant and trucked directly to Ike Williamson Spit and left at that point. We may need potential dewatering sites. We've had identified 3 that we'll follow up with the owners and looking for nearby vacant land. One is the golf course. Not sure how feasible that is. The other one is where I believe a Family Dollar store is going to be erected. And so I'm not sure how feasible that is. The third is underneath the bridge, the DOT site. So I'm not sure how feasible that is either. But those are the 3 sites we're initially looking at to see if perhaps we can place material there for a short period of time to let it essentially dewater and be able to truck without spilling all over the roadway. So that is for Mary's and Turtles Creek. That is what we're looking at as a potential site. There is roughly 16,000 cubic yards coming out of there. We could expect around 2,000 yards a week. So that would be approximately a 2-month project for construction. And we think construction could begin as early as December. But for the feeder canal and Bay Area, similar problems as far as dewatering. There's just no place local or nearby. Have identified a site I think is referred to as Majestic Oaks. It is a residential lot shown here, surrounded by residents, but we would load the material onto the barge, truck it, or navigate it around to the end of Cobia Street. And an excavator at the end of Cobia Street would then take it off the barge, place it on the trucks. If it is able to be shipped directly to the disposal area, it would go directly there. If it needed to be dewatered, we were hoping to gain access to Majestic Oaks as far as a dewatering site to leave it for weeks at a time until it is able to be loaded onto a truck and properly taken off. So those are issues that the residents will have a say in, and we will need their permission as well, and the owner of Majestic Oaks. But as a solution to the problem we have in order to construct this year, these are the best options we've been able to identify as far as getting it done, really. With that, the new schedule, kind of review this a little bit in passing, but we need to have the permit submitted by early October. We think we can have them submitted within the next 2 weeks. As far as for the Bay Area and feeder canal, we need to submit them now in order to make the November CRC meeting for the variance. That is our intent. By scheduling, we are already behind to make the November meeting. If we're not able to finagle a way to get on that agenda, we're looking at the February agenda for the CRC to request that variance. In other words, we could not begin work until February, which is not the only concern with that is with the bucket to barge operations for the feeder canal and Bay Area. We're expecting a 3 to 5 month construction time frame. We would not be able. We believe we can work through April with the new biological opinion, statewide biological opinion. So we would require, if we're not able to make, most likely, regardless of when we start construction, whether it's December or February, we will need a second, we could possibly need a second event next year. We will ask and try and get the contractor to bring his enough equipment down to finish in 1 year, but there is a potential that it would not complete in 1 year for the feeder canal and Bay Area. South Jinks Creek would be completely dredged and placed on the beach, as well as Turtles and Mary's Creek, and probably one or the other of the Bay Area or the feeder canal. So that is one concern that regardless of when we started construction, we believe we could be in a 2-year cycle to complete that work. Hopefully we can get enough contractors and enough interest and enough equipment on site to complete it, but I did want to bring that up now as our concern as we move forward, the potential of going into 2 seasons. And that is, and again, we'll bring back a estimate in early October for council review. With that, as I mentioned, South Jinks Creek, we believe still will make construction this year. That will be done by hydraulic dredge and pipeline, so it's a simple pipeline along the beach and no trucks involved, and direct beach placement. And with that, I'll take any questions.
All right, real quick, guys, I'd like to have 2 questions for every councilman person, then go back to that person if you have more questions. Charlie, you can start it off.
I have one question. Is there any way to pipe that sand to any of these dewatering sites?
There are ways. I was hesitant to, if we piped it to, first, let's just talk about, if we talk about Majestic Oaks and placing that material there, there's approximately 50,000 cubic yards. We would expect to remove 40,000. In order to place it on this site, it would be 10 feet high around the entire site. So we looked at placing sheet pile around this entire site and pumping the material into that, and then letting it dewater in there and move all the trucks in at once. But I was looking at the site, it being residential, I was hesitant to recommend that because it would be quite an eyesore. And the construction process, as far as having the truck equipment, the heavy equipment, the cranes to install the sheet pile, the track equipment to move the material around, I felt it would be too obtrusive to the residential community. It is during the winter, so I do believe less residents would be here, but as I understand it, those houses are permanently occupied, and we would be right up against their property line.
I agree, it would be intrusive.
There is
it would still have to be trucked from there.
And it would still have to be trucked from there.
What's the cost difference? Any idea? You didn't look into that?
Well, for placement, I believe you could. Well, see, you have to build the sheet pile wall, and you have material on there to truck it around. It's probably $15 to $20 a cubic yard total. You're still trucking it away, so that material stays, but it would be, I believe it would be cheaper to pump it, and quicker, but more obtrusive. I do believe and hopeful that some of the material will be able to be placed directly in the truck and shipped directly off. In other words, not use that site. Unfortunately, it will be a load by load process for that one. So I don't think all the material needs to go there, but we need to
The
prepare
DOT
properly.
controls that?
It'll be the truck operators will not be allowed to spill material on the roadways, and if they can control that material, then they won't have to use that site. They can go directly. If it's too many fines, too clay, then and fluffy, so to speak, then they'll have to be dewatered there for some period.
John?
Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.
I have a dozen questions just from what Charlie raised, besides the one I had.
We'll come back around.
So, but are there alternative ways to dewater it? Can you load directly onto barges and let them drain on the barges, and then load the drained stuff from the barges onto trucks to haul it to the site without taking and running this logistics exercise of tearing up the new roads that we just had put in and dropping it essentially on all the green space in there? Is there alternative methods to do that?
There are. Placing on the reason we remove it off the barge is, I mean, it will dewater some while we're placing on the barge and transporting it over, but the dewatering process is weeks to months versus hours. So leaving it on the barge takes up the time frame, takes up that equipment's use, and you can place not a lot of material on a single barge. So construction-wise, it's unfeasible to leave it on there. We would need some type of dry space to place it. We tried, I had conversations to see if we could, being that we would remove it later, stockpile it on the beach and remove it, and that was shot down pretty quick.
So what is the impact of the dewatering on the physical site where you would be dewatering? Other than you're going to have a bad, for a year it's going to be an eyesore as a construction site. But then after you've hauled all the dirt away, because we're talking about the materials that's contaminated materials that we're going to put on the soil, on the top of the land. And
Not contaminated. I don't want that to, but it's silty material.
well, it's not compatible dredging material.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
So-
And it's not compatible because there's stuff in it that we don't want to put on our beaches.
Silt, yes.
Okay, so we're going to take and put that on land in various places, and it is going to have no long-term effect?
No, we would remove that material and plant, restore the vegetation as far as the grass, and make sure that vegetation stayed. So if the vegetation, we would use heavy equipment, backhoe, excavator, front end loader, whatever we need to, or dozer, whatever we need to push that material and remove it. We'd also have silt fences or even hay bales or whatever it took around the site to make sure that anything that drained off it would not hinder the wetlands between Majestic Oaks and the Bay Area. So we would do our best management practices to ensure that the erosion or leaking from that site would not impact the area.
And it wouldn't hurt that majestic oak that sits out there in the middle, one of the big trees left on the island?
Absolutely not. We would stay well away from that tree. I think at least 100 feet from that tree.
All right, Rich.
That's my two.
There you go.
For now.
Rich, 2 questions.
Bob, I don't want to get into the weeds of this. I really don't. In fact, tonight I'm going to ask the council for a future agenda item, hopefully very shortly, that we just have a meeting just dedicated to dredging. Because there's a lot of questions that I have. There's a lot of questions the taxpayers have. And we haven't found any policies or anything related to this. We haven't even yet provided a fact sheet to the taxpayers. And I want to hopefully have a meeting so that we can get all this information corralled so that we can begin to hopefully move forward. And I would like, if the council does agree with that, to schedule the meeting, I would like to have you present.
Absolutely.
Let me tell you my concern. This thing is taking too long. Okay? Number one, these are previously dredged areas. Other than North Jinks Creek, these are previously dredged areas. We've been at this for 3 years.
Rich, is there a question to this, please? A question. We have 2 questions per council person, and then we'll come back. No lectures.
It's not a lecture, Mr. Benton.
Please, 2 questions.
It's a concern that a lot of taxpayers have.
2 questions, please.
Okay? Stop trying to control free speech.
2 questions, Rich.
This is taking too long. We've dredged before. We've had spoils before. And it seems to me, and I don't know why it's taking this long unless all the rules and regulations have changed, so I really don't understand it. But I do understand one thing. The reason why it has taken so long is because we're trying to manipulate the process, in my opinion, to try to get North Jinks Creek dredged.
Rich, please get to a question.
That's the question, and that's my statement. So I hope you attend the meeting if the council will agree to schedule it.
Robert, real quick, my questions are, in trucking this material out, is there any value to it as we could sell it
No.
No value at all? For fill, for roadways, for anything?
No, I would be happy if someone took it for free.
Okay, is there a possibility to allow the Army Corps of Engineers down the road, a month from now at the scoping meeting, to allow us to put it on island number 311? That change?
I believe the state is going to take an active process, kind of to define or yes, I think there is.
Okay.
I think there's a strong possibility there that something
So
will
do
be
we
done.
do we need to make a motion today to go forward so we make sure we're at that November 11th scoping meeting and not the February scoping meeting?
Well, there's no more scoping meetings. The CRC meeting.
rather,
yes, the
I'm sorry.
CRC. No, there's no, you can make a motion to be clear, but, we're proceeding with, we have direction to submit the permit. We are moving forward with that, and unless there's a reason, unless the council does not want me to submit, does not want Moffett Nickel to submit the permit, I do not need a motion, but, so we're moving forward in that direction. This is more of an update. If there's concerns, I want to make sure you're aware of what we're doing before we do it.
Now, as far as pumping by pipe to underneath the bridge, is that, you said that's an option?
No, Turtles and Mary's Creek, everything would be loaded onto a truck at Bill Seafood and then moved there to a dewatering site. Here as well, it would be placed in a truck or some kind of hauling vehicle at the end of Cobia Street and then moved 1,000 yards or so and then dumped again just to reduce the mess on the highways.
Right. Okay.
Is what that is.
Jan?
Yeah, I have a couple questions about the cost. If I understand correctly, we pay a cost to improve and retain the dewatering process. There's a cost for that, and there's a cost to use that property. That's correct?
We do not have the details for the property you're talking about, the core island, or?
I'm talking,
And most likely there will be some kind of cost, yes,
right.
most likely.
And then we are supposed to have that removed in, what, 3 years?
No, only the core island, we may have an opportunity to leave it for 3 years. These sites would probably leave for less than a month.
Okay. Then we will have to pay the person who owns the area where we're going to leave it permanently. So that's another cost
Yes,
added into it. Okay. We're going to be preparing, we're going to be paying transportation cost twice in this.
yes.
Okay. And November is the next CRC meeting?
It's the next meeting that we have an option to be on the agenda to.
Okay, we missed the September one.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But, real quick, sorry, are we on that CRC meeting on November 11th?
We are not, the agenda's not been published yet. We are not on it. We are going to request to be on it.
Okay. Charlie? Any more questions?
No, nothing more.
John?
First one is, please clarify on the grant. Let me get the right page. You said the state grant would still cover 2/3 of the cost?
Yes.
My question is up to what limit? What we had now was $2.77 million that was based on the first budget that you came up with that state would cover.
Correct.
Are you saying if our costs overall go up to $6 million, say, then they'll cover $4 million of that?
Yes, we would need to do a budget amendment, an amendment to the agreement, so they would.
And they're going to be just simply excited about giving us more money?
They understand, they are well aware of the problem, that this is not just a problem that Sunset Beach is dealing with. It's a statewide issue as far as the lack of disposal islands and the abrupt change in that policy. So we are actually working with them in, I'm part of NC Byway, I'm the treasurer for NC Byway. We are working with the state and the grant administrator to try and fix this problem that way as well. So I do not believe there would, in our conversations, I believe they expect a cost increase. As a matter of fact, I've told them to expect one, so I know they expect one.
Okay. Second question is actually a kind of review question on the soil that would be put onto the beach. Okay, and since that appears to be the one that can happen quickest, and that would at least unplug South Jinks Creek where that island is building. Within that is, you've, just clarify and confirm, you've already done the studies to confirm that the sand inside South Jinks Creek is compatible to and can go onto our beach.
Yes.
And that met all the state standards.
Yes.
So that it's good sand and we won't all of a sudden find rocks and stuff like that. That's on there. And that the sand is going to be piped in to be dumped on the ocean side of the high water mark. It will not be pumped on the dunes. It will not be pumped at the high water mark back towards the houses.
It will be placed from the toe of the dune seaward. So it will, the dry sandy beach that everyone plays on will receive this material that will improve that area as a beneficial reuse.
All right,
So we will build the beach and extend the water line.
okay. And all that stuff is cleared to go?
Yes.
Uh,
It was in the permit application.
within the
Yeah,
permit
it's typical.
application.
It's typical standard practice.
Okay. That's my two for now.
Bob, I just have one question. I thought hummocks were owned by the state. Who owns Island 311?
It is owned it is not owned by the Corps. It is owned by private property owner Sammy Varnum. However, the Corps of Engineers has a management.
Owned by
It's owned by a private property owner.
private property owner, okay.
So but it has a federal use agreement, a perpetual easement, sometimes called, but that the Corps of Engineers manages or operates or holds. So they.
If the decision is to dump it there, then we have to pay the private owner.
Possibly. There has to be negotiations, yes.
Thank you.
Now, there's other adjacent islands to that 311, which I thought the Army Corps of Engineers owns. Is that correct, Robert?
My understanding
Going
is
towards Ocean Isle?
the same property owner owns all the islands in the area.
So the one across the street from Kings Creek is also owned by Sammy Varnum.
Yes. Now 310 and 311, the two right beside each other, but the two adjacent to Jinks Creek are owned by the same property.
At one time, he said there was a small piece of property that Ocean Isle owns that we could possibly talk to him about putting dredging in there. Have we discussed that with Mrs. Smith? Behind Tubbs Inlet, there was another piece of property that we discussed on this map here, on this side over here, behind Ocean Isle.
There are no islands or upland disposal sites back there. That's marsh grass.
Okay.
So that would not be allowed. There are additional islands up the Intercoastal Waterway, but they still would be managed by the Corps of Engineers. Anything along the Intercoastal Waterway, any disposal island along the Intercoastal Waterway would be managed. I could forward you a boundary map off Google Earth that shows the islands and what the Corps manages, but they're essentially everything.
How about Bird Island? Is there a possibility of giving those spoils to Bird Island at a less cost than giving to Sammy Varnum?
They're still managed by the Corps of Engineers, so we'd still have that same policy problem.
And then we can renegotiate the price of them differently than we can with a private homeowner, correct?
We could. I mean, the Corps of Engineers still manage. It's owned by Bird Island, so to use Bird Island, we would have to get the state's approval through Bird Island, as well as the Corps' approval. And the Corps already said, they said yes, but it's not going to happen this year. And you would still have to improve the island, place the material, and remove the material.
So this year, the only project we could really do this year is Mary's and Turtles and South Jinks Creek.
No, I believe there's still, I believe as far as if truck haul is agreeable or amenable, then I believe we could potentially complete the project. But I would plan on Turtles and Mary's Creek, South Jinks Creek, and one of either the Bay Area or feeder canal.
So in the springtime, you would complete this project, or would you have to wait until the next fall to do the rest of the feeder canals?
Probably have to wait
Riverside Drive?
till next November 16th.
Okay. So everybody understands, November 16th is dredging season. We don't have that date. We're giving that date by the federal government to dredge. Correct, Robert?
Yes. Yes, for environmental concerns, yes.
Do you have any questions?
Yes. I question the ownership of the spoil islands. I would like to be sure that that is verified through the Division of Marine Fisheries. They have the list of all the private property that's owned in and around these barrier islands, and their list is the ruling list of who owns what. So I would really like for you to see you check through Marine Fisheries to verify ownership of that island.
No, absolutely. We've checked with the Brunswick County deed of records. But
I'm
it's,
talking about the Division of Marine Fisheries.
yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Jan, is it true that there's one also owned by Bird Island? Is that?
No,
Okay.
no, he was talking
We
about.
just talked about that. He's gonna look into that for us, Richard. Any more questions, John, Charlie?
Nope.
No.
Pass.
Charlie?
No, he's done.
Okay. Would you, in the review process, give one more shot at explaining what this variance means? So, my understanding is they have to give us a variance to let us dredge, and the variance says we can dredge, but we don't have to have a intercoastal water or Atlantic Ocean water outlet. Is that correct?
Correct. The variance would allow us to exclude that connection.
Okay, and so, and you are confident that these agencies will let us do that?
There's one agency was not in the room, Division of Water Resources. The main agency.
And they're the one that controls the water quality
They are the-
issues that get affected by not having an outlet?
Yes, the main agency was not in the room. They had left the room at the scoping meeting, and we have had conversation, and they conceptually liked the idea, but did not confirm that they supported it.
Robert, can you explain to the public that we're going forward with this project, and it's not the town holding it back? This council has voted and told you, give you authorization to get the permits, to
Absolutely.
go forward, and the agencies are just slowing it down by changing the rules with 311 and the spoil islands that we thought a year ago that we could use, but now we cannot use, and that's no fault of the town of Sunset Beach. It was the Army Corps of Engineers.
Absolutely. The disposal islands have been used historically in the past numerous times up and down the coast. They're used daily prior to February of 2017, and had numerous conversations, had at least three that I recall directly talking with the Corps about 311, 310, or 311, or even down to 309. Could we use those islands? And it was, yeah, sure, no problem. You know, we don't use them. And
What changed your mind, Robert?
I don't know. We've contacted headquarters and tried to understand where this headquarters being Washington D.C., trying to understand, one, who even issued the guidance, who was the actual author, and what was the intent. We cannot.
And Robert, is other spoil islands doing this, or just
The entire
311 and 309?
The entire state. This
The
is
whole
a
state of North
statewide issue.
Carolina is doing
Yeah,
this.
This is a statewide issue, and it is blowing up quickly. It is on the agenda for this CRC meeting in September, and expect there to be a lot of comment
So
about
there's
it.
got to be a lot of issues with other towns trying to dredge with the cost being double because you have to truck it out.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And that's
Go
why
ahead,
the
John.
states,
Not-
that's where,
not
as far
quite
as the grant
finished here.
agreement, they
Okay.
expect it.
You said that the Corps of Engineers, we go through this process, in particular, if we have to use the disposal islands and then go get the stuff and truck it off later, we'll need financial insurance prior to the beginning of the work to ensure that any place material would be removed. How do we go about doing that? Does
That's-
this council vote and say, we promise we will pay for this, or?
There would be some
would-
kind
would-
of,
Would they take that?
we
Or-
don't know. They didn't know. I know.
Okay, so when you go through with your cost and your estimates, you kind of get a sense of what type of insurance that they would want and what we would have to do to.
Where our estimate won't, I'll provide an estimate for the truck haul project not using the core island.
When that will come, the 18th?
That'll be on the 1st of October.
October?
Okay.
That's the 6th?
Okay.
Okay.
Can't do it on the 18th?
Can I answer that on Friday?
Sure. Okay. Well, the worst case scenario, it's October 6th. Okay.
One more.
Okay.
Okay, this is not directly related, well, it is directly related. On our agenda, we're going to talk about having a specialist come, Dr. Pietrafesca, I'm probably saying that wrong, who's clearly somebody who opposes a lot of the project that we're trying to do.
I beg your pardon.
When we get to that point, I'm going to propose a discussion that we bring in a expert specialist scientist who can give the other side of the view as to why it's beneficial to do the dredging, why it does not compromise our environment, why it does not compromise our erosion situation, and those types of issues. We've had lots and lots of scientific information arguing against dredging, but surely either within your company or you can recommend to us people to try to reach out to. There are experts out there that can say why we should be dredging and how we do that to help maintain the water access and water quality in our communities. Can you make a recommendation of somebody that we could try to reach out to? And ideally it would be somewhat locally so that we could meet a time frame within about a month or so to get them together for a
Right, sorry, John, but
discussion.
right now we're scheduled for October 5th to have a public hearing on that. So if we could have someone on that date, that would be great.
What is October 5th?
That's when the professor's going to talk to us.
Oh, Professor Petrofesca is
Yes,
coming October
yes,
5th?
yeah.
Excellent.
It'd be nice to have a pro and a con in that discussion.
Well, I just want to remind the people, the scoping committee people stated that they were not going to approve dredging North Jinks Creek. And there seems to be an effort to find someone, somewhere, to approve this dredging of Jinks Creek.
Well,
This
Richard-
is why, John, I have requested your recusal, because you are too
Whoa,
biased
we're
regarding
not
this
going there.
issue.
We are not going there.
Thank you.
Real quick, Richard, stop that.
Mr. Mayor.
Real quick, I'd like to say something to everybody in this town. If you put North Jinks Creek, and Rich will agree, and Jan will agree, if we put North Jinks Creek on this dredging, it will take 3 to 5 years just to start doing the feeder canals, the canals, and the bay. So, as a council, we have said, let's go forward with what we can do. Is Jinks Creek going to be dredged in my life? Probably not. But right now, we need to dredge what we can and do it as quick as we can, because if these canals start to fill in and they start growing grass, you will never dredge that. Your homes will go down in value. So let's work together and stop worrying about North Jinks Creek. It's off of the dredging business. So let's just worry about what we can do and not what we should do. All right? Robert, thank you very much. Jan, I'm sorry, you have anything?
Well, I do, but I think I will cover that at, well, I should say it now. I've made contact with Dr. Pietrafesa and secured him for a date and for a length of time. His presentation is not on dredging. His presentation is on barrier islands, estuaries, the dynamics of all of that. His presentation is not on dredging. His presentation is simply facts, not an opinion.
Okay. Robert, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to have a motion to approve the minutes from August 6th and August 21st.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to file a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes for the August 6th and the August...
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
At this time, we'd like to have public comments on agenda items only. Please state your name and address, and we're limited to 3 minutes. Thank you. Do we have anybody? Okay, oh, there, almost got away with it.
Not in this lifetime. Ellen Nelson, 704 Shoreline Drive. Just to, a couple things to follow up on the agenda. A business meeting, to meet with the business owners and to follow up where we had met back in last June. I had not heard from anyone, and I just wondered if we could put it on a calendar, on an agenda when we can meet. I think there was going to be a committee set up, and we were going to discuss accommodations tax, et cetera. So I just wondered where we might be on that, or is there,
Or something, or?
Yeah, let's just get this done. Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
put a date?
Yeah.
Look at it,
We
David.
would like to do that, but I
Okay.
just point out that we had, I think it was about 11 businesses represented, about 80 or 90. And-
Right.
And the big thing that they wanted was marketing. And we need to come up with a way to kind of fit
Right.
that in. And
Cons-
we're sort of looking for what the guild, business guild is going to be doing.
One of the concerns that the Business Guild has is getting a drive into membership because of the frustration that they have felt in the past of what has happened to the Business Guild with regards to their fundraising through the farmers market as well as business in general. And as we discussed before, of course, it was summertime and we had businesses were in peak season. And I know everybody was busy there, but there's not a time we're not busy when you're in business. There's not a downtime. You're constantly on the next step. So with regards to getting all 80 businesses represented, I don't think unless you can get all 3,000 plus members who live in Sunset Beach to come and attend one of these meetings, you're not going to get the turnout. They're burnt out. They've been told
Well,
no
I
so
think we
many
can,
times.
you
Well,
know,
we could
Mark, you and I can get together and
John and I will
with
get
Hiram and give
together
it a next
and
stage.
tentatively, can we put it on the agenda for October 6th, Lisa? To have discussion and invite the businesses back to have more discussion?
And we'll do our, the
No,
Business Guild will move forward from,
October 6th is Sunset at Sunset.
Okay,
oh,
sorry about that.
yeah. We will do our end to get as many business owners as possible in, but we need a concrete date, and that's part of the problem. It seems like we're always trying to put, you know, a cart before a horse, and we've got to start somewhere.
How's the 20th?
We did have a date,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody from the Business Guild canceled it.
That was a meet and greet that was a meet and greet that was not, that had nothing to do with
Right.
the town council or any of that. That was strictly a function, and that was canceled due to the owner having a personal issue where he had to close his business that day.
Mark, can you
So-
and I and Hiram get together and come up with a plan? We need more than a date. We have to have a plan.
At the June meeting,
And then come up with,
Rich, hold
with the date that we recommend. We'll get in touch.
Okay, we'll do that, okay?
Okay.
And I apologize.
That's
I
okay.
also should have attended the meeting a couple weeks ago, but unfortunately, I'm the only councilman still working full-time.
Yeah,
I couldn't
it's-
make it, so it's
It's
my
hard for
fault.
the business owners to clear their schedule, so it always seems if we know we're working in one definitive date, we can move
no, you're
forward.
right. I mean, this council promised immediate feedback.
I'll follow
and-
up. The other issue I do want to just address, so it's off the table, and you mentioned you got a letter in the mailbox, and very simply, not to open a can of worms, it shouldn't be. That was a private issue in Ocean Isle Beach with regard to their church ceremony, and it strictly boiled down to where the services were being held was impacting on an owner's property because of lack of parking, and that person was frustrated. There are obviously both sides of the coin are valid points, but that is not something that is being freedom of speech or suppressing religion. I don't think that's an
Okay.
issue that's coming here. That was strictly a mob mentality that
Well,
went
I
kind
got
of
a
bozo.
little anxious because I
Yeah.
didn't know if they were going to try to do
No.
that at
It was
Sunset Beach.
it was all about public
Sorry, but
access
your 3
and.
minutes- excuse me, your 3
yeah.
minutes are up.
Yep. so
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, please. Number questions? Town administrator reports, planning and inspection department, Hiram.
Yeah, both. Our Living Shoreline project has, it's stalled a little bit. What happened with that is Division of Coastal Management decided that our existing major permit would not be allowed to be amended to ride the Living Shoreline project, so they're requiring us to go out for a new major permit. So we've contacted the grant funding They've given us an extension. East Coast Engineering should be getting that. Did we hear back? Yeah, this week they'll be submitting it. They finally got the go-ahead from Coastal Federation that everything looked okay on Friday. So they should be notifying neighboring property owners. So we'll still be within, within the grant guidelines timeframe. Now we'll have until February to finish the project. So that's where we're at with that. And once we get the permit, everything's ready to go. Everything's set up. It's ready to pull the trigger. We received notification today that our CRS recertification was intact, so we still have a rating of 7, which should be yielding people roughly a 15% discount on their flood insurance. FEMA's rates did go up this year, so I don't know how much that 15%, you know, they're probably still paying the same amount as before from what I've been hearing from a few homeowners, but at least,
Didn't go up.
no, at least our rating has stayed the same and we're good to go. So we're still doing what we can to improve the resiliency of our community in case of flooding. We have made an offer, and that offer has been accepted for a finance director. They will be starting on September 13th. Her name is Tara Eatman, and she's got several years' experience in North Carolina finance. So we'll be happy to welcome her to our team in a few weeks. Also, you know, hurricane season, we're ramping up. It's getting ready to really spike. So just remember, if you don't have your hurricane passes, come in and get your hurricane passes. Be prepared, know your evacuation routes. Staff will soon start further preparations for that season.
Okay, thank you. Public Works Department? Dustin?
I'd just like to add that end of this month, the bathroom next to Main Street will disappear for a while. It will go down for maintenance, so it will not be there for at least a month or two while we do maintenance work to it. Also,
Just real quick, talk about that bathroom. I know one time we discussed putting in a permanent bathroom there. Have we gone any farther with that?
well, since we got a FEMA map, we can look at that and see what the elevation is now
Okay.
and see what we.
The reason why we couldn't do it is because of the elevation, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
You looking into the hiring, Russ? 'Cause I
Yes.
know one time we discussed putting a permanent bathroom there instead of every year taking it out for maintenance.
Right, we can look at that and explore that option during the budget season.
Okay.
For next year, for a project for next year, but the maps have improved, so it should, the base flood elevation should have dropped, I think, about 3 feet, so
Okay.
if that's enough to get you going, that's what it would be.
Yeah, we'll look at that.
Okay. Thank you.
Also, in the park, the floating dock is deteriorated some, so we're gonna have to look at putting a new floating dock in at the park. It'll be about $7,600 for a new one to
Does
go
the
in.
flotation devices have failed?
Well, no, the boards,
The boards, okay.
because it's 13 years old. It was been put in since '05. But we will try to salvage the floats that are there and use them what we can,
Okay.
if we can. That will help on cost with that also.
When will that be completed?
I'm looking at trying to get a price today from a contractor to do that, 'cause I cannot do that.
You guys can't do that?
No, because it needs to be drug out of the water. It needs to be took out.
Okay.
So that's something that I cannot do.
You'll get 3 estimates?
I can't get through.
Okay.
But also, there's been some alligators that's been spotted in Mary's Creek. So I'll be putting some signs up in the park to make people aware there is some alligators in Mary's Creek. Also on that.
Okay, we'll talk about alligators. I talked to Lisa the other day. I got a last town meeting. I was told I would approach Greg Gore as far as putting a gate up about around the observation room area.
Okay.
And I never got back from Greg, but Eddie Walters got back to me and said he'd rather recommend a camera with signs saying you're being filmed. Something like we do at the park with the veterans. And I talked to John about it, and it's roughly a $5,000 cost to put that camera there with signs saying, please do not feed the alligators. There is such and such a fine to doing so.
Okay.
Would you recommend that over a gate? Because they've had concerns about gates opening. People open it, they still can walk to the water because you can't lock it because it has access to boaters.
I will refer you that to the police chief, the Ken, about that. How would a camera work with that?
Okay.
Please would have to enforce it.
Yeah, because he have to enforce it, because he's got the technology.
He's up next. You took your class of the Russell Alligators, right? Okay.
So we'll be placing them there.
Okay. Thank you.
and also on the sidewalks for Main Street. The pre-bid, not the pre-bid, but the pre-construction meeting is scheduled for Thursday. I will know more of a date of starting then with JP Russ on that date when they get started.
But the letters have went out to all the homeowners saying that
Yes.
what's going to happen, you can
Yes.
lose some of your property and vegetation and landscaping.
Yes, anything you had in the right of way, you need to remove it. If not, when the contractor come through, they will remove it.
Dustin, can the mailboxes be put on the other side of the street? Is that something that you have to work with the post office?
No, that's something that the post office regulates. We don't do that. That's the side that the post office like for them to be on.
All right, say that again?
That's the side that the post office want them. The
You know,
post-
most streets have it on one side, Dustin, you know what I'm saying? And-
Yeah, they do. They have them on one side because the post
We at least
office.
approach them and ask them if they prefer to have it on one side. Aaron?
I mean, are there mailboxes on both sides of Main Street?
No, we can
Just
approach,
one on the-
we can
on the
approach
south
them.
side?
right, we can approach them, but it's their call. We have zero
No, no,
say
I
in
understand
this.
that, but should we approach them?
We can, but I don't
I don't think.
know if it's gonna do any good is what I'm getting at.
Because it's their decision.
Yeah, and this is the way they've been, this is the way they've trained their drivers, this is their route. And they like to keep it all as homogeneous and fast as they will, because what they do is they loop around the easiest path to drive, and if you reverse that order on that one road, it messes up their,
Well, I think we should just let them know, say if, just check it out.
we can do
It
that.
doesn't have to be
We can
a
invent-
formal thing.
We look into it and see what they say.
Okay, thanks, Dustin.
You
Richard?
Hello. I'd like to give a special thanks to C Shift Station 2 crews. On the 24th of August, they responded to Ocean Ridge. We had a report of a subject that had fallen off a ladder. So we get things like that a lot, but the crew responded to this one. I was briefly behind them, and the construction worker fell 30 foot from the house being built, and he fell into a, I don't know the wording to say this, but a back porch, a concrete back porch that was not set inside. So it was about a 5-foot drop inside, and he was seriously injured. I just want to say thank you to the crew. They did an excellent job applying a traction splint to his leg. He was seriously injured. They did an excellent job picking him up, lifting him out, and getting him to the ambulance for transport to the hospital. Excellent job. July was very busy for us. We had a lot of incidents. It was very active on fire and beach patrol. I'd like to point out, after Labor Day, beach patrol hours have diminished. We're now staffing 8 to 5. So we won't be out till 7 p.m. and not earlier than at 7 a.m. I'd like to remind everyone it's still very hot on the beach. I know dogs started Tuesday. You can have dogs out all day long, but it's still very, very hot on their feet, and the sand's very hot. So I'm seeing a lot of that today and this week. So just like to remind everyone, keep them cool.
Rich, I'd just like to say you did a great job this year with the diversity of the cabanas. I think the cabanas the last couple of weeks have been handled properly and professionally, and I think, you know, very good job. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, good evening. In addition to my report, I do want to add that if you've traveled down Park Road this afternoon, you will see our new message board and speed trailer that was put into use for the first time today. We're going to move it around the town once it spends a little time on Park Road, bring it back, charge it up, and then it'll be at area spots around the town where we have speeding complaints, which is pretty much everywhere in the town. So watch for that. It'll be keeping track of the speeds so that we know peak times for enforcement. We're also going to publicize that on our Facebook page and the website. If anybody has requests, we'll allow them to make those requests so we can put it in your yard. We did also start to advertise today for the second annual Trunk or Treat event, which is again going to be over on High Market by Ingram Planetarium, October 30th. Look for more information to follow with that for sponsors and times. Short of that, unless there's questions for me, I know you asked about the
camera?
alligators. Yeah, the cameras.
The cameras, I mean, Eddie Walters, you know, I think prefer not to put a gate up there because, you know,
Right.
that's an access for boating.
Sure.
And if you put a lock on, they can't get out. If you don't put a lock on, people are just gonna open that gate and go out there and feed them anyway.
Right.
Which you made a very good point. So you recommend maybe a camera similar to the one we put at the park. And so then we can put signs out, say violators will be fined and send tickets if you feed the alligators.
Well, as I'm sure you're aware, a camera isn't going to keep anybody safe.
No.
So if, with the incident that we had recently that wildlife handled, we do have charges for that individual. The only reason that we have charges for that, or that wildlife has charges for that individual, is because somebody that was there that saw it took pictures, got pictures of the license plate, and we were able to prosecute. A camera would allow us to do that. But of course, if somebody's there with a camera and the signs and they ignore it and they feed the alligators, and then a family comes next and little ones get out and the alligators are in that frenzy, that's not going to keep everybody safe. But we all know as well that we can't put a fence around every body of water that we have in Sunset Beach that contains an alligator.
Right.
So I think I would be in favor of it, absolutely. It would help us a lot more to be able to take enforcement action.
Hiram, can we look into the cost of that?
Can you look into the
I
cost
can
of
do
that?
it. I can do
Yeah,
it.
thanks, Chief.
Yeah, for sure. Any other questions?
Good job.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Baker.
Good evening. July was very busy for the Stormwater Department. I did include some photographs in your packet. That is just some examples of the severity of the sinkholes that we've been repairing. We're still working on some of those. We did repair a couple of roads over on the island. We're getting somewhat caught up on the sinkholes anyhow. We are moving forward with the stormwater program. I'm hoping to have the jet truck here mid to end of the month, and multi-hog should be here by the same time. We do have the camera system, and we've been utilizing that quite a bit.
Any question?
I just have one comment. You guys were very quick and responsive in putting that Mayoral and ditch up at 16th and North Shore,
Yes,
except it's been 3 weeks now. We haven't had any rain. We don't know if it works
I know.
yet.
I'm hoping it's gonna work. It should help.
You think all the failures are bad pipes?
Yes, yes.
Are we repairing them with concrete pipes? This doesn't happen again?
We're gonna use some concrete under the roadways, definitely. Outside the roadways in easements, there's a high-density plastic polyethylene pipe
Okay.
that's widely used.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sunset at Sunset, Karen Joseph, please.
Good evening. I'm very pleased to give a report tonight on the most up-to-date information on Sunset at Sunset. ATMC is currently creating our TV spot, which will run for 2 weeks prior to October 6th. 2 new banners are being created for display around town for the 2 weeks prior to the festival. A new sponsor banner will be made for display at the festival. A full-page ad recently appeared in the Brunswick Beacon. Plans include an ad in the North Myrtle Beach Times and the Wilmington Star News. We're pleased that the local Sea and Sand Band will be providing musical entertainment throughout the day. As of today, we have 116 craft and nonprofit booths, 18 food booths, which is a phenomenal number, and 7 sponsor booths. In its 11 years, this being the 12th, Sunset at Sunset has never had this many participants. We also were ranked number 3 in the Brunswick Beacon competition, and we did not do anything to bring that about. Sunset Committee works very hard to put on a festival that we hope will make our town proud. And we look forward to all our residents and guests joining us. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Susan, Karen, are you still taking applicants for booths?
The deadline was September 1. We'll take anything that arrives in the mailbox by Thursday. Friday, we are meeting and we are laying out the map. So we've already had to turn away a couple of repeating kinds of vendors.
Is there anything that the town council can do to help to promote?
Yeah, you can always tell your friends. I wish Ms. Nilsson had not left, because we certainly welcome all of the Sunset Beach businesses to get a booth if they desire, or they can just be a sponsor if they prefer to do that. We get more and more of our banks are now setting up booths, and I think it's good for business and it's good for the town.
Thank you.
Good job,
Okay.
Karen.
Okay, I'll see you at the festival.
Thanks, Karen.
October 6th, all day.
October 6th, all day. We'll be there around 7.
At this time, I'd like to open the meetings discussing the old business. First thing on the agenda is the nomination of Dr. Gregory Weiss to mayor. I'd like to make a quick statement. A couple weeks ago, we voted for Dr. Weiss, and it was a 2-2 tie. At that time, I want to know that the town to know that I had spoken to John and to Charlie about this issue, and I had some concerns about Dr. Weiss handling certain people on this council, and I asked them to vote the way they did, and they did. And Jan and I voted for Dr. Weiss. At that time, I also told them that I would discuss and talk to Dr. Weiss about my concerns. We had a frank discussion, and he gave me his word that he would conduct these meetings with a civil way, and it will be not out of control. So today, I'd like to make a vote to have a discussion about Dr. Weiss for the mayor and to swear him in at this next meeting. So any discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Mm-hmm.
If I may,
Go ahead, Rich.
I'm here to apologize today for what happened on July 2nd. Because of the June 4th, because on June 4th, Dr. Weiss's outstanding presentation to the taxpayers was received with accolades from the full council, a standing ovation, and later a positive editorial write-up in the Brunswick Beacon. I never had a hint or expected the confusion that happened at the July 2nd council meeting. This unfortunate episode, which the council seems now reluctantly to publicly discuss, could have been avoided. Unfortunately, due to the death of my sister, I was unable to attend to cast my vote. I apologize deeply to Dr. Weiss and his wife and to the taxpayers. It's time to move on, and I sincerely hope that as a full council of 5, we will come together, put our political differences and personal desires aside, and lead the nomination to have
LED?
I think he's there.
All right.
Leading the nomination to have Dr. Weiss be our next mayor.
Any other discussion? John?
Mayor Pro Tem Benton explained what went on. Charlie and I supported Mayor Pro Tem Benton in his concerns of how things would happen. It had nothing to do with the capabilities or lack of capabilities of Dr. Weiss. Any political machinations that you think were taking place are in your mind. And I think it is time, as you said, to put this stuff aside and get on with the business of the town. Thank you.
Charlie?
I want to reiterate that although a conspiracy theory was come upon, and some accusations were made, Dr. Weiss has been clear and upfront every minute when dredging was brought up. This was not a political move because he is not in favor of dredging. He was quite clear, everybody understood his position. And the only reason I went along was because I didn't believe that he could control Mr. Serrato's. And we'll see yet if he can. And there was another reason. Mark had done a good job at running the meetings and also controlling Mr. Serrato. So he can sit over there and laugh, but it's really
Charlie,
not
yeah,
funny.
You made your point, Charlie. I
All right.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Jan?
I would like to suggest that we move on. Do you need me to nominate Greg Weiss for mayor of the great town of Sunset Beach? I would like
Second?
to do so.
Second?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we'll have the swearing in next at the 18th, Lisa. Can we have the swearing in then, please?
It took 2 months, but we did it.
Rich, enough of your mouth. And you wonder why, Rich.
You need a lesson in class, Mr. Benton.
Your class is low class. Exit interview process form. Mr. Schroeder.
Let me get my notes, Mr. Benton. This is item number
4.
4. My report is in your packet. Exit interviews are used by many employers as a learning tool, although the draft exit, I just received the draft exit interview form tonight. Thank you, Lisa. I guess what I would like to do is to make a motion and have discussion, to file a motion to implement the exit interview policy and process effective November 1st, 2018, or as soon as practicable.
Right now, Rich, I don't think the town has the legal authority to force anybody to sign a piece of paper.
I have in my, I believe in the description, this needs to have the policy and the form needs to have a legal cleansing, so to speak. You can't force anyone to do anything they don't want, period. So if the employee chooses not to fill out the form, they don't fill out the form.
You know, but Rich, that's basically what we have now. If the person gets fired and wants to come to the town council, they have a right to do that now.
Say that again?
If a person leaves the town, they have a right to come to the town council to give their grievances.
Listen, people come, people go. We do not always know the reasons why they leave. It's salary, it's relocation, it's feedback that the council should have. Jan, you've worked with exit interviews before.
Yes. Mark, it doesn't have anything to do with council. You just interview an employee that's leaving. He or she can answer or not answer. It has nothing to do with whether or not they can come to the council. They always have the right to come to the council. The exit interview form doesn't have anything to do with that.
I think the point of contention here is the paragraph at the bottom of the page where it says the confidential exit interview form is to be placed in a sealed envelope by the employee and provided to all members of council before the exit interview is scheduled with 2 council members. I think the point of contention is we can't require them to meet with the council. We can have them fill out the form, we can have them sign a waiver for not filling
they
out the
want
form, if they want to, but requiring them to meet with the council versus giving them the option to are two different things.
Can we remove that from
That's
the
on,
policy?
well, this really isn't a policy, but
Or whatever? Can we remove that?
I think we need to send that to Grady and let him look at it, or
Well,
let you review it.
no, the simple fix here is the same thing we already do. It'd just be changing the form to a more acceptable form that y'all want to have, give them the option that if they want to, they could come up and meet with council members as their exit interview, or they can just fill out the form, or they don't have to fill anything out at all. But the simple fix to that is we already allow all three of those options right now. So there's no really need to create a new policy. We just present a form written down that gives them the option so they're aware of their options. I think should suffice.
Do you need a motion for that?
I don't need a motion for what we're already doing, but if y'all want to change the rules and
You're already doing an exit interview form.
we do some form of exit, we request, but most people turn it down. Just to be honest, I mean,
I'm sorry.
Well, you can't force.
why
He
not?
said they have an exit rule now, Richard, but most people do not partake in it. They just leave. They have a right not to partake in it.
I understand that.
I'm just saying, he's saying most
This
people
is a
don't fill it
form
out.
that people can fill out if they choose to. And I think it would be some nice,
We
I
already
think it would
have
be
that.
feedback for the council. I mean, that's all.
We don't have a full form. What I'm saying though is we can take this form, the form's not an issue, but we can update it to get, I think, do you still want them to have to come to council is I think what we're getting at? 'Cause
I would like to see the exit interview forms of employees. We've had 53% of our employees in this town have been here 5 years or less. And I'd like to know why people are leaving. Is it for education? Is it because our benefit package is not competitive? Is it salary? Is it family problems? I would like to know.
Then
I think it's helpful for the council to know.
And the way we're set up now, since resignations aren't public record, you would actually need to then implement a policy that says that y'all get to view these. And you would view them in closed session as a whole. Because that's the only way the board, the council can act as the personnel body is together in closed session.
Can I short circuit this and please provide this to Mr. Richardson for legal review,
Sure.
please? Before we make something very simple, very complicated.
Hiram, can you also give them what we have now and add it to this and see what we can do as far as making a simpler, easier form and not make it mandatory for them to come out in front of the town council?
Well, what I'm sitting there saying is regardless if they interview or not, for y'all to view this mandatorily, we're gonna have to put that in the policy. Because y'all don't have the authority, since it's not a disciplinary action or a firing,
I don't see any need
individually
for
to see
this.
it. But what I'll do is I'll run that by Grady, but the form's not a problem. The form itself, it's the process that's the problem, that we need to figure out.
Well, let's just run this by Grady, Charlie.
Jan, is this
Okay.
the same process you used during your days in HR?
I don't need to see the exit interviews as a council person. I don't need to see that. I just like to know that we do have an exit interview process.
And we do.
Yeah.
And we have one.
So if we wanted to ask, how many of the people that left in year 2017, out of the reasons that they gave, if they gave reasons, did it because of pay and benefit, gave it because of education, or gave it because of some kind of dissatisfaction, or gave it because we disciplinary action, or they got fired? But that's something you could answer
Right.
anyway.
The metrics are one thing, but individually looking at someone's personal statement is a completely
Yeah.
different personnel matter.
Yeah. I mean,
So I can
have
put
no
together the
problem with you
statistics.
providing- I have no problem with you providing the metrics, breaking down the departures for a year, but I have no desire whatsoever to be part of a process that either interviews the people or reviews what they wrote or gets into the knickers of while they were doing it.
I think the town administrator should handle that, and if it's a problem, a recurring problem, you need to come to the council in closed session until we have a personnel issue, and it's not policy of the town. I think that's simple. That's what we're doing now, John. So we're doing that now. Hiram's looking at these people,
Yeah,
and that's
and
why
then
they're
that-
leaving.
so
And they
that's
have a
fine.
right to say, no, I don't want to tell you anything. All right, so just have Grady review that for us, please. Okay. Dustin, please. This is GSATS project.
The GSATs project that we've discussed at the last meeting, I think y'all wanted to look at a possible price options, and Dustin gathered those for us about turn lanes.
Yeah, I did a tour, and I'm totally confused. And let me talk, and let me tell you why. I mean, just to see if I understand this, I don't know who recommended this. I don't know if the GSTAT recommending this to us, or we're recommending this to GSTAT. But you're suggesting that we pay $450,000. It's $150,000 per turn.
No, hang on. We're suggesting projects, period. We did this at the last meeting, where we suggested a multitude of projects because there's money available for transportation improvements from GSATs.
All right.
At the last meeting, it was discussed that someone brought up the fact of what about turn lanes into some of the subdivisions that don't have them. And we said we'd get numbers on those. We're not saying that this is the project to go with. This is just presenting the information as requested, and we're asking you if you want us to proceed with projects.
I'm trying to understand, who pays the $150,000?
It'd be us and GSATs. The town and GSATs. We would seek money from GSATs,
Grant money.
but it'd still be the town.
So the
Can
town's
I-
going to pay a part of this?
We'd have to contribute.
How much does the town pay?
It's a scale. We would score better the more money that we contribute.
Well,
Can I explain?
Yes.
Since, as the assistant GSAT representative, I went to the meetings back when they were having it here. The GSAT has $1.6 million of funds that they control that can be used for projects directly within our South Brunswick area communities. And they came up with a form which was passed out at our last meeting that shows the different types of categories that we can have and the different ways that you can make yourself more competitive. For highway-related projects, up to $1.6 million can be, if I'm remembering correctly, the whole thing can go to that. But which each community has to come up with a proposal, what the projects are, and what they would cost, what service they would serve, and then what portion of it the town would be willing to pay versus getting out of this pool of money. And they have provided a scale to do that. I guess, Dustin, did you go out and do the costing?
Yes.
For that?
Yeah.
So what it was is among the various proposals that we had, one was to do a multimodal bike lane from
Station
Outfitters
Trail.
up to Fibbers roughly. The second, which we could only go for about $600,000 of that project. The other alternative was to go for the highway funds, and the concept was out there on Georgetown Road with 55-mile-an-hour speed limits. We have 3 communities that really don't have safe turn lanes to get off. One going into Windfall, one going into Sandpiper, one going into Cape Side. And so the idea was go find out what it would cost to do that. 3 of these would be $450,000. So the next step would say, if that's something we want to do, is to kind of frame out how do we make a competitive package to maximize the points that we could get, and to find a balance between how much we would be willing to pay and how much we'd be willing to ask from this GSATs for this direct appropriation. And there's no guarantee that they would give it to us, but it's a way, it's like we got $100,000 out of this same fund to go for our sidewalk project that we're using several years ago. And it's the same program, the same type of thing. So where we are now is to frame and come up with what kind of project we want to propose and see what we can get out of it.
Right. The deadline for application is the 28th of this month.
all right.
So we would take tonight's guidance and on the next agenda, provide y'all the packet that we would be requesting to submit. We just need to confirm, A, if y'all want to proceed at all, and B, if we're to proceed, which project to proceed with, so that we can actually develop
You need a motion on that, Hiram?
Yeah, I need a motion to proceed so that I can, with what project you want to proceed on, so that I know what to prepare.
I'd
Do I
like to
hear a
make a
motion on this?
Yeah, I'd like to move that we proceed on doing the study and preparing a package to go for funding all 3 turn lanes, $150,000 apiece, total cost of $450,000, and staff work out recommendations of what alternatives we have to be competitive.
I have a second?
Second.
No, no, ho.
Oh, there's a motion on the table, Rich.
We're still having discussion. I'm trying to, who is paying this 450,000? The town? Somebody answer the question.
It's a grant. We've answered it already 3 times. It's a grant. And
So this is not costing the town
that's not,
a penny.
hang on, I said it's a grant, but it's also a match. We have, but it's not, it's a scale. We can either give as little as 20% or up to 80% or even 99% of the cost. The more we're willing to put into the project, the higher we score and the more likely we are to be funded.
Is the town, for example, Jaguar's Lair doesn't have a turn. Once that area is developed, who is paying for that left turn? The town?
That's not considered in this.
That's not considered now.
No.
I mean, I go up 904, and there's a I believe a turn for the housing development up there, Sunset Creek. There's not one for the senior center. There's not one for the Methodist Church. It's sort of like a hodgepodge. And here's my concern. We have stormwater issues, big ones, and we're going to need the money. And that should be our priority project until we can better guesstimate how much is that going to cost, and that is our priority. I don't know why we're messing with turns at this time. Have we had any accidents?
Well, there have been.
Chief, have we had any accidents regarding left turns, right turns, or whatever on Georgetown Road, 904? I mean,
Richard's
I've been spoiled. I'm from Boston. You take turns all the time.
Well, just to clarify real quick, because you're directing all this at me, this was a council decision to look at these funds.
That's
period.
fine.
So
I don't
calm down,
object
please.
that. I just want to know how much it's going to cost this town.
We
before
don't know. That's
approve
what
it.
I need direction. If we're going to move forward, we will calculate all that and bring it to the next meeting.
That doesn't mandate us to do it.
No.
Okay, that's all I wanted to hear.
I have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
May I ask a point of order question, please?
Yes.
It's my understanding that when we have a motion on the floor and a second, then we have discussion. We don't have discussion, we can have discussion before the motion, but is that not the correct order?
It's second, then discussion.
Motion first, second, and then discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
After introduction sometime.
Jan? I know it was, no, I'm sorry, Brunswick County Mutual Aid Contract.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to file a motion to accept the Brunswick County Mutual Aid Contract.
Second.
Second.
Discussion? Any discussion?
It's a standard program
know.
that
Yeah.
happens every year. We have to do it every year to keep.
I'm
the
gonna make sure I
firefighter
follow the list so I don't get yelled at.
Okay,
So,
that's-
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Jan, your date? You just want
Yes.
to say real quick what it is?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say, several meetings ago, I asked the council for permission to have a scientist come speak to us about this issue that we're talking about. And it's barrier islands, estuaries, creeks, etc. Then at the last meeting, I asked for permission to ask Dr. Leonard Pietrafesa, and I received that permission. I have made contact with Dr. Pietrafesa. I've worked with Lisa and Hiram for the best date and the best place, etc., for Dr. Pietrafesa. Dr. Pietrafesa and I have discussed briefly his presentation, which, as I stated before, is only facts, nothing else. It's not about dredging per se. He has agreed to come speak with us in this chambers on Friday, October the 5th at 3 o'clock. And I have offered him a 60 to 90 minute presentation. He asked what the length of his formal presentation should be, and that is going to be my response.
That's fine.
With council's permission.
You have our permission.
I am disappointed that we may push another, I hope it's a scientist, onto this, because now I've got to go back and tell Dr. Pietrafesa.
As of Jan, right now, we have no one else, so just leave it as it is. If someone else calls up and asks to, want to speak on their behalf about.
Well, I would suggest, rather than do that, I would prefer that if there's another scientist that would like to come speak on the opposite side of it, that we schedule a meeting for that scientist.
I think 2 meetings on call for, and limit him to, instead of 90 minutes, to 60 minutes, and have, that's an hour, that's 2 hours worth of, some type of meeting regarding the coastal marina environment. I think that I'd have 2 people at the same time speaking, and maybe a lot of times on agreement, Jan. I don't think that, looking at it, it's going to be a fight. I don't see it that way.
I don't see it as a fight either. I just know what I told Dr. Pietrafesa. I wish I had known all of this before I had made contact with him.
Like I told you earlier, I had multiple phone calls saying that they'd like to have opposing views. So I think that's fair to the town that we do have opposing views. That's all I'm asking.
Listen, this is not a pro or an anti, this is not a campaign. This is education.
We understand that.
It's education.
We understand that, Rich. Where you get?
Okay, so what's the problem?
Because we're having 2 different people speak, that's all.
People can invite anybody they want.
We are.
So invite somebody else.
We are, Rich. All right.
Can I ask?
Yes,
a couple
John.
of points. One, at the last session, when you brought this up, I asked if you could get a resume from the doctor.
Right.
So that we can.
He's been in Denver. I'll get a resume to you.
Okay. And
But you've got this.
yeah, but that's not a resume.
Right.
That's what
Right.
organizations he's a member of right now.
All right, so Jan will work on the resume.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
The second, and this is just me, it's been a long time since I've been able to sit through a 60, much less a 90-minute presentation. I think that's a little bit long.
Council, if you want to make it into 2 things, we can make it to 2 meetings.
Well, I think, if we could provide keep something to 30 or 45 minutes and then have a question and answer period, it's easier to make it through, that's all.
Well,
From my point
I
of
would
view.
like to do that with Dr. Pietrafesa. I think he's expecting a question and answer period. That's what we talked about. But he's not expecting a debate.
Oh, I don't want to debate. You're going to have questions, though.
Well, of course,
Right.
question and answers, yes.
Okay.
But telling him to speak for 60 to
an
90
opposing
minutes
side
really
is a
long.
debate.
Well, can we narrow it down to, if we do get someone, Jan, can we narrow it down to 45 minutes and then questions? So it'll work out to over an hour anyway.
Sure, but I would certainly like to let Dr. Pietrafesa know. It's not fair for him to come here
Well, right
and
now, we
then
don't
all of
know-
a sudden he's
We don't
faced
know
with
right
this.
now we have a second person.
We still, it's a month away from now. I mean, it's not like we're telling him we're changing it on him tomorrow.
Somebody help me out. I'm just a simple man. Why is this so complicated?
Rich, other people in the town are asking me for opposing views. So do I ignore them for you? Or do we try to work it out and compromise and have 2 people speak on the same issue? It's not like he's right, you're right, or I'm wrong.
It's not about that.
Yeah. Well, there are concerns. I
Jan
can answer
invited
that.
a renowned faculty member to give a presentation on coastal issues.
This is not on dredging.
It's not on dredging.
It's not on dredging.
All right.
It's
So what's the
facts
opposing
only. It's
view?
not an opinion. It's not a view. It is facts only.
This is not linked to Jinx Creek.
Be that as it may, Professor Hilderman has been the one that has used this professor and his writings as a case study and arguments as to why there's a problem with the dredging. And whether he's going to talk about dredging or not, he's going to talk about water velocities, he's going to talk about
Yes,
life
he
and
is.
erosion
Yes,
and all
he
that
is.
kind
Yeah,
of stuff.
Yes,
that's
it is.
part of it.
And what I asked for is Mr. Robert Neal to see if he can make recommendations on somebody who addresses those issues with an idea that there are things that we can do, such as dredging, that does not compromise our environment. And
Well,
the doctor's
real quick,
views have been.
John, I agree.
Yes.
That is not what I proposed to Dr. Pietrafesa.
Yeah.
Okay, right now, I don't see there's any problem having two people
I
speak.
see no point in having the meeting.
Well, I don't like the fact if you don't get your way, Jan, you want to back out. That's not right.
That's not my getting my way. I don't like the way it's treating Dr. Pietrafesa.
Well, he's going to have the time to speak. I don't understand why we can't have two people who are with the same view or opposing views. We don't know if they have opposing views. But, John is right.
I will contact Dr. Pietrafesa and tell him to expect another scientist to speak as well.
Maybe.
I assume it's going to be a scientist.
Okay. All right. We'll speak again about this on September 18th.
So do I have council's approval
Yes, you do.
for
I think we made the motion already.
5th?
Any
the
more
5th?
discussion on this?
Do we have a motion?
We have a-
Just
I don't know that we
clear
have a
something
motion.
up for me, because
Yeah.
is Dr.
Yes,
Is he being invited to a meeting
on the 5th.
on
He's
October?
already been invited.
Okay, fine.
We're making a motion right now to say okay to that.
Thank you.
All right? Any more discussion? Ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Simple thing. All right.
May I ask another question, please?
Sure.
What happened to the suggestion that I made, and we discussed it, and I thought it was going to happen, that we were going to send a letter out to all the property owners that are going to be affected by this dredging project? We have already said, as a council, the affected property owners will be the ones paying for this. That letter has not happened yet, and I'd like to know the status of it. And when it is drafted, I would like to be a part of it as well.
Jan, you will be a part of it, but we cannot send a letter out until we know the actual cost of the project. We've talked about this multiple times. We cannot send a letter out until a homeowner on Dolphin Street that's going to cost you nothing.
We
don't know the number yet.
can't send a letter out telling the people what we're hearing from Robert Neal here tonight. We can't do that?
No, but we have Channel 99 where if they are concerned, we had a full house today. They go Channel 99. I'm getting multiple emails every day regarding dredging. So I think people are very active in this issue, and we're not sending a letter out until we know the cost.
And further than that, we kind of need to know the full project scope as well. Until that variance decision's been made, we really don't know the extent of the scope of the
Jan, what happens in
project.
2 weeks? We find out we can put it on the island on 311. Changes the whole project again.
Of course it does,
So
but we understand that from this. We can explain that to the property
Yep.
owners. I
Do you
think
know
they
how many-
need to
do you-
know
do you know
what's
how-
going
Jan,
on.
do you know how many emails I got about, are we dredging North Jinx Creek after 100 meetings about it? So when we know all the factual
That's why a
information-
letter would explain that.
No, because that letter may change in 4 weeks or 5 weeks from now and be totally different. So let's wait until we know everything going on.
Mark,
Jan,
Mark,
Yes?
I can't
That's
see,
Rich. Go ahead, Charlie, he's getting ready.
I can't see sending a letter out to people and saying, you're gonna have to pay for this, but we have no idea what you're gonna pay.
Well, we made that decision.
When the time comes, Jan, we're going to put a letter out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yes, Rich?
no, I'm going to pass. I mentioned something earlier, which I'm going to be placing on the future directive. This council needs a meeting dedicated, just dedicated to dredging. We have yet to establish any policies. We have yet to figure out what the assessment fees could be. We need to know the cost. We need to know all of this stuff, and we need to concentrate and consolidate all our questions to ensure that they are properly answered.
Richard, when
We're
we
still
have
in a
all the
vacuum.
information, when we have all the information from Robert, we'll do that. Until then, we can't have a meeting as someone I know very well also says, we need the data. We don't have all the data. So wait until we have the data and then we'll have the meeting. Consideration of town administration position, job advertisement. Hiram? That's me, I guess.
That's you.
I guess we need a discussion.
Real
About-
quick, what, in your
Packet.
Lisa's prepared a job advertisement.
You see that?
So what you're basically being asked to today is make sure that this advertisement is what y'all want for the candidate that you want. So you're making a motion on this, producing this ad going out basically tomorrow.
Well,
Okay, discussion. Who's first?
yeah, council has always had a general policy that when critical issues are to be discussed and voted on, that the full council would be present. Now, I understand, I had no objections when the nomination of Dr. Weiss was going to be conducted on July 2nd. I thought it was going to be, well, I wasn't here, but I thought it was going to be a 4-0 vote, so I got surprised.
Rich, we're talking consideration.
I
of town
am
mission. Let's
talking,
get
I'm
to that
trying to
issue.
give you the background, Mr. Benton. Please stop cutting me off.
You do that very well.
Now,
So let's get to the subject.
please help me understand. This is about the town administrator, and this is about the job description. Now, here's the part I don't understand, and I need some answers. This position was vacant since March 5th. On April 2nd, the council met with the League of Municipalities. The HR director who showed up, I think it's Mr. Hartwell, if I'm not mistaken, Lisa, he recommended using a search firm.
No.
For a variety of, please do not interrupt
But
me.
that's not what he said, Rich.
He strongly recommended using a search firm.
No, I'm sorry, real quick, to correct you. He recommended that was an option, but he also recommended that y'all could do this yourself.
Oh, I understand that. That's
But he
that's
didn't-
bottom line.
He didn't make a recommendation on either direction. He
Well, let
presented
me
the-
tell you, I heard something differently. Now, we had two vendors, and during my absence, there was another vendor came in. I think this was a firm from North Carolina. And I just want to ask a couple of, this is the most critical position in Sunset Beach. The most critical. And even as a former HR director, when we had most critical positions, I hired a search firm. They have testing tools, contacts, they cast the net as wide as they can, and they ensure a good outcome. What makes you think that we can do this? Because we've done it before? Do you know how much time this takes? Do you know what the screening process entails? Do you know the bickering that takes place when you read a resume, review it? Listen, I'm not an expert, but I was an HR director for many, many, many years.
And why aren't you an expert?
And I know my limitations. And I think this council is doing a disservice to this community by thinking that they can hire the next town administrator. And I think it's a disservice. So what I would like to do is I would like to file a motion to have the council reconsider and to hire development associates to immediately begin the search process for the new town administrator.
I second it.
Any more discussion?
This is,
No,
we-
Charles, just, do you have discussion? If you don't, we'll take a vote. So
Move to a vote.
can we move to a vote,
Yeah.
please? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All against?
Nay.
Nay. Nays win. So, Lisa, we have the town, do I need to make a motion for you to put this in the paper? All right, at this time, I have a second to put it in the paper.
Well, it's not just the paper. You need a motion just to advertise
Do I
out.
have a second to advertise this position?
I second.
Any discussion?
Yes.
All right.
I think in the responsibilities, we need to add, where the departments include, we need to add our stormwater management / maintenance department also. Stormwater is going to be a big part of the
Is that okay,
program.
Lisa? Can you have that, please?
Okay. Second question is that, is October 12th, which is less than 6 weeks away, is that a reasonable amount of time for this to be advertised and to get inputs? What kind of timeline did we put for the fire department and finance director?
30 days, but we had to extend the finance director because we got less than 3 applications in the first 30 days.
So this would be a little bit over 30 days, so.
Right.
Okay.
Just from my experience and looking for these jobs in the past, these things are advertised anywhere from 30 days to 90 days in general. So y'all,
Hiram, we get how many applicants did we get last time, Lisa? 144. So if we get 144 in 30 days, do we need to acquire another 30, 40 days? Is it, when's the cutoff point? When we get over 100 or 75? October 12th.
And so that was, we had that many applicants the last time we went through this process for the town administrator?
and
What,
put it up.
what venues do you use to advertise for this? More than just the newspaper, I hope.
ICMA, International City County Managers Association, the North Carolina City Counters Managers Association, North Carolina League of Municipalities. Will probably hit the Virginia municipalities and the South Carolina municipalities listservs, not listserv, but their publications. You've got the listserv, you've got the paper, you've got our web, and then you can always branch out to whatever from there. But the standard for this type of job in North Carolina is to hit the associated states on the coast. Since we're a coastal community, if we were a mountain community, we'd actually hit Tennessee and a little bit of Georgia, but we can still hit those. It's wherever y'all want to do this.
The coastal areas of Georgia, Alabama, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, that would
Well,
be the areas I would recommend.
y'all can go as far out as y'all want with this. You can stay as tight as you want with this, like just North Carolina or North Carolina, South Carolina.
No, I'd rather
I'm just
have-
saying, it's up to y'all, but our plan with Lisa here was to hit Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and then the international publication.
Would you add Georgia and Alabama to that, Lisa, please? In the coastal areas, of course.
And ICMA is going to hit most everybody that's in this profession.
Okay.
One last question I had was the minimum of 5 years experience in municipal government operations. Is that adequate for the responsibilities that we have for our town administrator?
Well, speaking with my experience here, sitting up here, I'd say yes. I've got 10 years, but 5 years is pretty standard for a community this size. You may go up to 7 years sometimes since it's got coastal dedication to it, but generally speaking, 5 years an executive manager at department head level or higher is what most communities with our budget and our size typically look for as a base to start with.
Okay. Well, as long as we're going for the department head level or higher, which we have as preferably now, but not required.
Well, and y'all, this is for y'all to make the changes. Lisa just drafted this up based on the last one and a few others that we found online.
I think her by adding Alabama, Georgia, I mean, even in her town in Texas, because that's a those coastal community. Oh, okay.
Yeah, ICMA is going to hit.
Texas, no.
Well, ICMA is going to hit everybody in the states and further out.
Okay.
The specific league letters and stuff we usually hit with more closer to your home.
Okay. So I need a second for this? Lisa?
Well, if y'all are still making changes if you want to.
Well, any more changes or discussion on this?
Yes, we're making a mistake.
Okay, good. All right. Any more discussion?
No.
Second? Second. Ready to vote?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All nay?
Present.
All opposed?
That's a yes.
No? No vote? Okay.
Is that
Passes.
no vote or A
That's a
nay.
no vote.
I know.
That counts as a yes then.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right, Rich, new, community meeting, Rich.
I have this on the agenda, just, it's quick, I know it's getting late, but once the new mayor is situated, I'm hoping that we have a community meeting. Hopefully early, I'll let Dr. Weiss worry about that, but hopefully it should be in early January, well before the November elections. I don't want any PR nonsense by the council. This is, in fact, if we can do it in December, that's fine too. Other than that, that's it.
January, we put it in, and we'll ask Dr. Weiss to put the date. All right, number 4, stormwater program. Richard Baker?
Yes, I would like to file a motion to approve the allocation of $30,000 for the replacement of the inlets and pipe on Kings. Is this Kings Trail?
Yes.
Yeah, I've been there, yeah.
Can you let him explain
Let
it?
me explain it real quick.
We have.
It's gotta be done.
Due to all the flooding from July, we had severe settlement, the catch basins have sunk. We got the new camera system, we ran the camera in there, and virtually every joint of that pipe is separated.
Okay.
And the water's going underneath. We're gonna lose the road.
And that's your cost here, 24,000
Yeah.
roughly? Okay. Do you have a,
JP Russ.
tell you what, I saw that.
That's the quote we
Do we have a
got.
second on this?
I have a
Second.
question. Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah,
A second,
this-
but-
Do a second, then we'll have a
Is,
discussion.
is there anything else along Kings Trail Road that's gonna cause us problems that we should be looking at?
As far as from the road structure itself, no.
Stormwater?
We have an issue down at the end of Kings Trail with a property owner that we're gonna address this fall.
Are you working with him to come up with a solution?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Right.
Any more discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
I said aye.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to file a motion to approve the proclamation recognizing October as the Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Okay. Any discussion? Or any second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Sweet. Harbor, home,
That's what we just did.
that's it, okay, I'm sorry. Okay. Deposition of directives.
Mr. Mayor, on the disposition of directives, I really truly would like for the council to have a meeting just strictly on dredging to try to determine what we need to do, what the policies that we need that we're going to have to establish so that we're well prepared. I feel very awkward and uncomfortable. This thing has been going on for 3 years, and we're still waiting for the facts.
So you want the special meeting, Richard, on that?
It could be a special meeting, Mark, but just solely dedicated on dredging, just dedicated.
Can we have that someplace in the first week of November?
Mark,
Yes.
I don't have a problem having this meeting,
Mm-hmm.
but again, if we're gonna have this meeting, we need to know where we're gonna put the sand, how much is it gonna cost?
Well, Charlie,
These are
that's
the
why,
questions that people
that's why
would
I put
ask.
it to the 5th. By then, we should have that answer. November 5th, okay, Charlie? And if we don't, we'll push it off until we do. Okay,
Well-
is that fair?
That's
But we
fine.
have to determine, Charlie, what we need.
Yeah.
And
We
don't
agreed.
have
November
everything's
5th 's
been
an actual
fractured.
regular
I know, so
meeting.
we have, where's the 4th?
A Sunday.
Then we have on the 6th.
That's
Mr.
election day.
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
Mr. Mayor, there's something else that I'm a little puzzled by. When I looked at the directives, there's a number of items that were missing, that were on there before.
Well,
Do you want to resolve this one first?
Can
Let's
we
get
finish
within
the
a fire,
date?
Rich. I'm trying to get a date for the dredging.
Oh, all
All
right.
right, so let me get that first.
Well, Lisa can,
All right, at least you work that out, okay? Sometime middle of November. Make sure it's not around election day, around school problems and, all right? Anything else?
no, the only thing is, I noticed on the disposition of directives, that a number of items have been removed. And they were removed without any notification. and I'm going to give you a list of them, and I want them reinstated back on the directives. 1, officially removing Jinks Creek from the dredging program. A decision to either terminate or continue allowing cabanas on the beach. Conflict of interest request. Fire department staffing. Now, I don't know why these were removed. If people perceive that these issues have been resolved, well, they haven't been resolved without any discussion.
Richard, I disagree with you. On dredging Jinks
I'll
Creek.
vote.
On Jinks Creek, we have voted on that, and that we removed it. You heard Robert tell us that today.
It wasn't voted on officially. It's on the chart.
Lisa,
I want
was
this
that not
council
voted?
to
We'll take
take a position.
Okay.
No, we haven't removed Jinks Creek as an eventual possibility. We have taken Jinks Creek off of the proposals that are going forward.
Correct.
For now, at this point in time.
For now. That scares me, Mr. Corbett, when you say
Richard,
for now.
Richard, give the list to Lisa, send her an email.
I will, thank you, Mark.
Just to remind everybody though, real quick, every item that he just mentioned, y'all brought up and then used your policy 17 to not have brought up for 3 months. That's why they're not on the disposition.
No, say that again?
Each of
Please.
the items were brought up.
Yeah.
And then each of them were voted on by the council not to be brought up again for 3 months. That's why they're not on the disposition of directive.
Wrong.
No, that is right.
No.
It's beyond 3 months.
No, September would actually be 3 months.
June, July, August.
July, August, September. It's three.
June, it was done on June 4th. Don't play games with
So
the
the
calendar.
next month would be the first.
Guys, right now, it'll be addressed by Lisa. She'll be put it on the September, right, correct?
I'll
Okay.
send Lisa an email, Mark.
Thank you.
Today is 3 months, 90 days.
Exactly.
Do you want all these back on for our next meeting then, or?
No,
Okay.
just the disposition.
So no
not the
dates.
discussion,
No date.
no talk. All right. Now we're opening to public comments. 3 minutes, please. Please state your name and address. Thank you.
Hi, Chal Glenn, 431 Dolphin Street. I know this board likes facts. I go back in time. I can go back 50 years here at Sunset Beach. And it is a fact that our waterways are filling in. It is a fact that our beach is growing. I am not a scientist. It is a fact that these things are happening. You may recall that years ago we had a pier, but if you ran that same pier today, it wouldn't reach the water. Why? Because Sunset Beach is growing. It's gaining sand every day. Just the last 5 years, look at the soft sand on the beach after you step off the boardwalk. It's much thicker and extends much further toward the ocean. Sunset Beach is growing. Look at Tubbs Inlet, look at the bay, look at the feeder canals, or the feeder canal and the canals. Everything is filling in. This is a fact, not something we have to debate. Also want to raise a parking issue. A lot of cars, especially from Memorial Day to Labor Day, park along the street. Most of these places are lawful. Many of these places are or prevent a safety and a hazard issue. When you try to come out any of the streets and you look left or right, you can't see because so many cars are parked there. It's just a matter of time before we have an accident.
Glenn, you said you're on Dolphin Street, right? Dolphin Street?
Dolphin.
I'm sorry.
431 Dolphin, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
The golf carts. I understand golf carts are probably healthy for the island, but they are also extremely dangerous. I would like to see this entity discuss banning golf carts from the causeway and the bridge. I've almost hit a couple of them myself. They're not powerful enough to cross that bridge, and they certainly don't move fast enough along the causeway. On the island, the North Shore and in and around the island, to Main Street, that's fine, but I think they should be banned on the causeway and the bridge. I know we've talked about some storm drain issues. I've brought up before, and I know, Hiram, you're looking at this. It's a question, are there any updates on the storm drains that are dumping sand in the canals, the feeder canals, or excuse me, the finger canals right now?
there's no update because they're working as intended. That's the issue with that, but the silt bags will be back in after hurricane season to help prevent some more of that. But we can't leave those, we're looking for other solutions because we can't leave the bags in all the time because the flooding that was occurring.
Right.
It's a which one goes first. So we're looking at options, but presently they're looking at more fixes to actual problems before we take on trying to reroute or something like that.
It's just hard to watch the sand continue to come into the canal.
And
then I'm going to be the one that has to pay 100% of that.
And they are looking at the options of that. It's just where do we start focusing on things, and road failure versus that is taking priority at this time.
I understand it's complex. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
Any more public comments? Thank God we could adjourn this meeting. Meeting is adjourned.
So moved.